Okay, good morning to all of you. This slide is visible. Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so sorry for joining late due to some other work. And let's continue a new topic today. I have told you that there are four important what levels of testing or four important types of testing which can be performed at different levels. One, unit testing, two, integration testing, three, system testing, four, regression testing. Out of this, we have successfully seen unit testing and integration testing. So today we'll start with system testing and then we'll start with regression testing. So many of you, those who are in industry, they are already aware of this. But it may be what it may be a repetition for them, but others they must know it, because based on this we will practice some of the software tools in the next laboratory class. Okay. There are three main types of system testing. One, alpha testing, two, beta testing, three, acceptance testing. So there may be a different what opinion among different what industrialists, or may be vary from books to books, but the central idea that remains behind these concepts almost same in none of the books. Might be slight variations in the definitions or in the categorization. Let's first see about alpha testing. Very much it is required in case of industry. So in alpha testing, the system testing is carried out by the test team itself, by the team members of the testing, or by the members of the testing team within the developing organization. So where you are developing your software, the system, the software will be tested by the members of the testing team inside the developing organization. This is called as alpha testing. Here test cases are designed based on the SRS document. We do not require the code here. So based on the SRS document, we will design the test cases. The objective is to ensure that what is mentioned in the SRS document, those functionalities are given by the developed system. So test cases are designed based on the SRS document. The test environment can be controlled a little in this case. So since it is the software is tested by the team members of the testing team within the developing organization, so the test environment here can be controlled a little in this case, because it is under control by the team members of the testing organization, of the test of the members of the testing team within the same organization. Now let's see what are the entry criteria to alpha testing. So the entry, that means when you will say that our product is ready for moving to alpha testing. So here, these are the entry criteria, like all features are complete or testable, no urgent bugs, because before that we have already finished unit testing and integration testing. So almost all of the features, they are complete and they are testable, no serious bugs are there. High bugs on primary platforms are fixed and verified. Those are serious bugs. High bugs on the primary platforms, they are already fixed and verified during unit testing and integration testing. 50% of the medium bugs, they are also fixed or verified. So all high bugs, they are fixed or they are verified. 50% of the medium bugs or little bit less harmful bugs on the primary platforms, they are also fixed or verified. All features have been tested on primary platforms. That I have already told you. All the basic features, they have been tested on the primary platforms. The performance has been measured or compared with previous releases. If we are having previous releases, so the performance has been measured or compared with the previous releases. That means this user functions, the basic user functions, they have also been compared with the previous releases or the previous versions. Usability testing and feedback, it is just always going on. So I will come what is usability testing maybe after a few slides. So we have to perform usability testing and feedback. It is an ongoing process. Alpha sites are ready for installation. So in the development organization, you might require a special environment if you are developing a what special kind of software. Say you want to develop a what Android app or a Android app for a mobile device. So you have to make the mobile device ready or for a washing machine or for a fridge or for some other special embedded kind of system. So you must ensure that the alpha sites are ready for installation. So these are the entry criteria to alpha testing. If these criteria are satisfied, we will ensure that our developed product is ready to go for alpha testing. So what are the exit criteria? So that means after alpha testing, what we must ensure? So the exit criteria from alpha testing are the following. After alpha testing is over, we must get the responses or feedbacks from the customer testing, and we may give to the the views. We may take the views of the customers. We may get responses or feedbacks from the customers. We may prepare a report of any serious box being noticed during this alpha testing. If you have seen any serious box and you are notified from alpha testing. Now let's see about, so here in beta testing, the system testing is performed by a selected group of friendly. So in the alpha testing, we are taking about testing the software by the development, by the testing team itself. But here in beta testing, the system testing is performed by a selected group of friendly customers, and normally at customer site. You may go to the customer site, but if the customers they are agreed, you can also do this testing at this developer site. So here you have to include a selected group of friendly customers. The development team, the another difference is that in beta testing, the development team does not have any control over the test environment. In alpha testing, you are having some control, but in beta testing, since you are including a selected group of friendly customers, so the development team does not have any control on the test environment. The entry criteria to beta testing is like this: positive responses from alpha sites. When you are performing alpha testing, almost all the serious bugs are removed. Positive responses you are getting from alpha sites. Customer bugs in alpha testing have been addressed. So if any customer related bugs are there, user related bugs are there in alpha testing, they have been addressed. There are no fatal errors. There are no serious errors which can affect the functionality of the software. Those errors have been removed. Then the secondary platform compatibility testing is also complete. During the alpha testing, we are ensuring about the primary platform compatibility testing, and during beta testing, we have to ensure that all the additional auxiliary or the secondary platform what issues they are being settled. So secondary platform compatibility testing is complete. Regression testing corresponding to bug fixes has been done. I have already told you regression testing is a testing where we'll see that by making some modifications, no additional errors, etc., or no additional issues have been raised. So this is regression testing. So before beta testing, we will also ensure that regression testing corresponding to the bug fixes has been done. That means during suppose alpha testing, you have find out some bugs. So while fixing those bugs, no new errors have been introduced. So that can be ensured by performing regression testing. Beta sites are ready for installation. So where you will install it, maybe at this customer site, or even if at a dummy site or in the development site, wherever maybe beta sites are ready for installation, then only we can go for entry. We can enter into beta testing. Some of the guidelines are there in beta testing, which you can find in internet sources and different books. Do not expect to release new builds to beta testers more than once every 2 weeks. So you don't do not expect to release new builds, new versions to the beta testers more than once every 2 weeks. So within every 2 weeks, don't expect to release new builds to the beta testers more than once every 2 weeks. Within every 2 weeks, at least or at most once you can do it. So don't expect to release new builds to beta testers more than once every 2 weeks. Do not plan a beta with fewer than 4 releases. So whenever you are making a beta testing or a beta product, do not plan for a beta with fewer than 4 releases. At least you should plan for 4 beta. If you add a feature, even a small one, during the beta process, the clock goes back to the beginning of the 8 weeks, and you need another 3-4 releases. That's why. So what you do not plan for with fewer than 4 releases, because if you add even if a small field during the beta testing process, then what will happen? The clock again goes back to the beginning of the 8 weeks, and you will require another 3-4 releases. Okay, so that's why I do not plan a beta with fewer than 4 releases. This will save your time. The exit criteria for beta testing is that after beta testing, we must get responses, feedback from the beta testers. Who are the beta testers? We must get the feedback from them. We must get the responses. We have to also prepare a report of all the serious bugs found during beta testing. And what bugs we have got, what errors we have got, we have to notify the bug fixing issues to the developer. So all those serious bugs or the errors, these issues have to be informed immediately to the developers. Those are the exit criteria from beta testing. Now we'll go for the acceptance testing. Its name is acceptance testing. So here the system testing is performed by the customer himself. This is the most important difference. And the customer will test it where? At the customer site. Why? In order to take a decision whether he is going to accept the system. That's why the name is acceptance testing. So here the system testing is performed by the customer himself to determine whether the system he should accept, it should be accepted or rejected. That's why the name is acceptance testing. This is carried out normally at the customer site. Okay, and the development team or the testing team, they do not have any control over the environment. This is about acceptance testing. So acceptance testing is the formal testing which is conducted to determine whether the developed system or whether a software system satisfies its acceptance criteria and to enable buyers to determine whether to accept the system or not. So finally, based on this testing, the customer will take a decision whether to accept the system or to reject the system. Acceptance testing must take place at the end of the development process. So that's why, since it is the final testing, based on this, the customer will say whether to accept or reject the system. So that's why acceptance testing, it must take place when? At the end of the development process. So this acceptance testing, it consists of tests to determine whether the developed system meets the predetermined functionality, performance, quality, and interface criteria accepted to the user. So all the characteristics the system should satisfy so that the customer will be in a better position to accept it. So what it should satisfy? So the developed system must satisfy the predetermined functionalities as mentioned in the SRS document, the performance requirements, it should provide good quality, it should have proper interface criteria which should be acceptable to the user. Okay, so in this way acceptance testing should be carried out. Therefore, the final acceptance acknowledges what? Therefore, the final acceptance acknowledges that the entire software product, it adequately meets the customer's requirements and hence the customer can accept it. That's why the name is acceptance testing. So it must ensure that the entire software product, the whole software product, it sufficiently meets all the customer's requirements as mentioned in the SRS document. So normally you might have seen in industry, people are using another term called as UAT, user acceptance testing. So this user acceptance testing is a little bit different from system testing. So what happens in system testing? In system testing, system testing is invariably performed by the development team, which includes some of the developers and some of the testers. On the other hand, the user acceptance testing should be carried out by the end users or by the customers, so that themselves they will take a decision whether to accept or reject, or they can give some suggestions. No, you have left these functionalities, you include, then only again we will perform acceptance testing, then we will give our decision regarding acceptance of the system. So user acceptance testing, on the other hand, it should be carried out by the end users or the customers, while the system testing is normally performed by the developers and the testers. So thus acceptance testing, why it is designed? It is designed to determine whether the software is fit for the user or not, making users confident about the product. The users will be confident, yes, what do we require, the product meets or the product provides all those features. It should be designed to determine whether a software system satisfies all its acceptance criteria. It should be designed to enable the buyer to determine whether to accept the system or not, or to reject it. That's why the name is acceptance testing. Okay. So the final acceptance marks the completion of the entire development process. So after this acceptance testing, it shows that the completion of the entire development process is already achieved. It happens when the customer and the developer, there's no further problems. Customer is happy, he is agreed to accept it. Developer also feels that yes, they have incorporated all the features given by the customers. Both of them are agreed. Acceptance test might be supported by the testers that I have already told you. So acceptance test, because if the customers are laymen, they do not know how to design some test cases, what input they will give. So it might be supported by the testers. It is very important to define the acceptance criteria with the buyer during various phases of SDLC. So it is very much difficult it is very much important to define the acceptance criteria. What will the acceptance criteria with the buyer during various phases of SDLC, starting from requirement specification, design, coding, etc. So it is very much important to define what should be the acceptance criteria during the various phases of the software development life cycle. A well-defined acceptance plan will help development teams to understand users' needs. So that's why make a plan. I have already told you, every testing you have to make a plan. In unit testing, you have to make a unit test plan. Integration testing, you have to make some integration test plan. And similarly, acceptance testing, you have to prepare a acceptance plan. So a well-defined acceptance plan, it will help the development team members to understand what the users' needs are exactly. The acceptance test plan must be created or reviewed by the customers, isn't it? What plan you are making, you should show it once to the customer, so he should review it, and he may give some suggestions. No, please change this plan in this way, so that they can accept it. So they may give also some suggestions while preparing the acceptance test plan. Okay. The development team and the customer, they should work together during acceptance testing and make sure that they have properly identified all the interim products and the final products for acceptance. What should be the acceptance criteria? What should be the schedule? All should be agreed by the team members and the customer. They should plan how and by whom each acceptance activity will be performed, who will be responsible, who will be associated. They should make a plan. Schedule adequate time for the customer to examine and review the product. So this development team and customer, they should prepare a schedule. That schedule should be adequate in time for the customer to examine and review the product. Then the team as well as the customer, they should prepare the exact acceptance plan. They should perform the formal acceptance testing at delivery. At delivery time, what kind of acceptance testing will be performed? Both of them should decide it. Based on all those things, the team members, especially the customers, they make a decision based on the results of the acceptance testing, whether to accept or reject. So the customers, they have to decide. So these are something about the acceptance testing, little bit easy, theoretical. Please read from the books and from different internet sources and prepare accordingly. Finally, we'll see what are the entry and exit criteria. So the entry criteria to acceptance testing is that the system testing is almost complete and all the defects identified are either fixed or they are documented. The acceptance plan, it is prepared. That's why we can go for now acceptance testing. So that is one of the most important entry criteria. The acceptance plan is prepared and the resources have been identified. The test environment for the acceptance testing is also ready. What should be the environment? The test environment for the acceptance testing is available. Normally, this environment should be developed at the customer site. The exit criteria from acceptance testing is that here the acceptance decision is made for the software. The customer says that whether he is going to accept the system or reject the system. In case of any warning, the development team is notified. If there are some minor issues or some warnings, then the development team is notified about those issues so that they can rectify them. Okay, these are the exit criteria from acceptance testing. In all types, so now in all types of system test, these test cases can be same here, like alpha testing, beta testing, or this acceptance testing. So in all the types of system, test cases can be same. That means the same test cases can be used during all those three tests. But the difference is with respect to who designs the test cases and carries out testing. As we have already seen, in the case of alpha testing, the development team or the testing team, they will carry out the system testing. In beta testing, it should be performed by a set of friendly users. Some of the team members may help, but in the acceptance testing, it will be performed by the end users only at the user side or at the customer side. So in this way, otherwise the same test cases can be used, but the difference is that who is designing those test cases and who is executing those test cases, who is carrying out those testing processes. Okay. Now we'll see some other aspects. The system test cases, what we have seen now. Okay. The system test cases can be classified into two important categories. One is functionality test cases or function test cases. Another is performance test cases. Functional test cases, what we'll do? These functionality test cases will be used to test the exact functionality of this software. So that we have already seen during using all those unit testing techniques like black box testing, white box testing, etc. So those black box test cases and white box test cases, they can be used as the functionality test cases. So functionality testing, that means black box testing, white box testing, which can be used to test the various functionalities of a system. We have already seen it earlier. So only is left performance testing. So now we'll see about only the performance testing. So the system test cases can be classified into functionality and performance test cases. So now let's see about the performance test cases. But before a fully integrated system is accepted for system testing, another testing nowadays people are using in industry that has to be performed, that is called as smoke testing. Okay. So before a fully integrated system is accepted for system testing, we should perform what? Smoke testing. Let's see what is smoke testing. The idea behind smoke testing is that if the integrated program cannot pass even the basic test, then why should you go for further tests? That means it is not ready for a vigorous testing. Okay, so that's why once the integrated system is ready, we should try to test some basic features. So if the otherwise, what will happen? The following things will happen. If the integrated program it cannot pass even the basic test, minor test, then probably it is not ready for vigorous testing. So don't go for the other testing levels. For smoke testing, what you have to do? A few test cases are designed to check whether the basic functionalities are properly working or not. Okay, so what you will do for smoke testing, you have to design a few test cases. A few test cases are designed for what? To check that whether the basic functionalities, whether the primary functionalities, they are working properly or not. Let's take a simple example. For example, suppose you are developing a library automation system. What are the basic functionalities? How to add a book, how to delete a book, how to add a member, how to delete a member, how a book can be issued, how a book can be returned. So before going to these integrated or this system testing, what you should do? For example, for a library automation system, if you are developing it, what the smoke test cases should include? The smoke test cases should check whether the books can be properly created and deleted or not. Whether member records, books means books details, books records, they can be created or deleted or not. Whether the member records, they can be properly created and deleted or not. And whether the books can be a sample, a specimen copy, a sample book can be properly issued and returned or not. So these are the basic smoke test cases which can be used to test the preliminary functionalities. If they pass, then you can go for that. If any of those basic functionalities are not working properly, don't go for the further testings, because the basic features, the preliminary features are not properly executing. Why should go for the other tests? So this can be ensured by smoke testing. Okay. So with this, now as I have already told you, in this system testing, we'll see two types of test cases: functionality test cases and performance test cases. Functionality test cases we have seen already earlier by using the unit test cases, that means the black box test cases and white box test cases. And next is left the performance testing, performance test cases. Let's see what are the different types of performance testing techniques. So what the performance testing does? The performance testing, it addresses the non-functional requirements, because in functional testing we have tested all those functional requirements, but there are several non-functional requirements. How you can test them? The performance testing techniques, they address the non-functional requirements. May sometimes involve testing hardware and software together, because suppose if you are developing a software for a mobile phone or for a washing machine or for a refrigerator, we have to test both the hardware and software together. So for conducting performance testing, we may have to sometimes involve the testing of the hardware and the software components together. There are several categories of performance testing, such as volume testing, stress testing, and this usability testing, maintenance testing, so on. These are quite easy things. I am just giving the headings. These are I have taken from Rajiv Mol's book and the Naresh Chauhan book. You can see yourself. These are quite easy things. Will not spend much time on this. So first testing, we'll see stress testing. Stress testing is also called as endurance testing. So as its name suggests, stress you must have read in physics or mechanics somewhere else. So in stress testing, what we will do? We will deliberately impose abnormal input to stress the capabilities of the system. So we'll deliberately give what? Some input which is not normal. We'll impose some abnormal inputs to the system to stress the existing capabilities of the software. Those input can be what? The input data volume, input data rate, the processing time, utilization of the memory, etc. They are tested beyond the designed capacity. Suppose you have developed your system to handle 1000 records. Deliberately you put to 1100 or 1200. See your system is working or not, or it is breaking down. So deliberately you give something more value than this, for which what is the designed capacity. Give some more values. Let's see whether the system is working properly or not. So this is called as stress testing. If the requirements, I have taken a small example later on. If the requirements is to handle a specified number of users or devices, then what the stress testing will do? Then the stress testing will evaluate the system performance when all users or devices are busy simultaneously. Suppose you have designed a system which at a time can support 15 users. What you do? Deliberately you put 18 users or 20 users. See whether the system is working or it is breaking down. So so if the requirements is to handle a specified number of users or devices, then stress testing evaluates the system performance when all users or all the devices are busy simultaneously. I have taken a small example here. Suppose you are developing an operating system. If the operating system is supposed to support 15 multi-program jobs, deliberately what you do? The system is stressed by attempting to run 15 or more jobs, maybe 20 jobs simultaneously. Then see whether the operating system is supporting all those users or all those jobs or not. If you are developing a real-time system might be tested to determine the effect of simultaneous arrival of several high priority interrupts. At a time, suppose 3 high priority interrupts are coming, whether your real-time system is able to handle or not. See, if they are coming one by one, fast priority job one, fast priority interrupt one, then priority interrupt, then the interrupt 2, or the interrupt having priority 2, then the interrupt having priority 3, no problem, it will work. But if at a time 3 interrupts come of the same level of priority, all are say priority of high, all are of priority 1, then whether the system is able to respond to those interrupts or it is just collapsing. Just test that one. This is known as stress testing. Stress testing usually involves an element of time or size. So normally whenever you are saying stress testing, it usually involves an element of time or size, such as whether the number of records transferred per unit time, say 10 records should be transferred within 1 minute. So deliberately you put 12 records, see how the system is behaving. Similarly, the maximum number of users active at any time, input data set, etc. So when you are performing stress testing, You have to see normally what's the time or the number of records or the number of users or the number, what should be the input data size. You stress them, assign more value than the designed values. That was stress testing may not be applicable to many types of systems. So it may not be applicable to all systems which involve some elements of time or size. There only you should apply stress testing. Okay. So next one is volume testing. It addresses handling large amounts of data in the system. So how you can ensure that it can handle large volumes of data. So whether proper data structures such as queues, stacks, arrays, etc., they are large enough to handle all those possible situations. Because when you are using small number of or medium data, then whatever data structure you may use, that may work. But while you are dealing with a high volume of data, then the data structures you have used, you have to ensure that they are large enough to handle what? All the possible situations. So fields, records, and the files that you are using, they are stressed to check what? If their size can accommodate all the possible data volumes. I may give you a small example here. In 2012-13, NIT Rourkela was conducting this BTech admission, CSAP. And that time, previously it was given to NIC, and that time they have given to CDAC. And see, I do not know whether CDAC was having that much of experience of handling these BTech admission of 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs of students' data. But when the result was published, immediately several complaints will come, and immediately then we have to stop the result. Again, we have to run the algorithm, and after the next day, then we are publishing. So see, that's why it requires the proper volume testing was not made at that time. It may work for 100, 200 or 1000 students, but when handling data of 2 lakh, 3 lakhs of students, you need to test the volume testing, whether this software you are developing for data structure you have used, they are whether sufficiently large enough or not, whether they are large enough or not to handle all those situations that you have to properly test, otherwise your software will fail. Confusion testing, again easy, it is analyzed. Yeah, so in confusion testing, what you have to do? You have to analyze the system behavior in various hardware and software configurations specified in the requirements. In the SRS document, you must have detailed what should be the hardware specification, what should be hardware configuration, and what should be software configuration. So that has to be tested. Sometimes the systems are built in various configurations for different users. For novice users, one configuration. For experienced users, another configuration. So if it is mentioned, you have to also test that. For instance, a minimal system may serve a single user and other configurations for additional users. If this is the case, you have to test by performing this configuration testing. Then comes compatibility testing. Here the test cases are needed, or these test cases are needed when the system interfaces with other systems. If your software is interfaced with another software, then you must have to perform compatibility testing in order to ensure that the system interfaces are working perfectly. We have to check whether the interface functions are performing, whether the interface functions as required, as desired or not. You take the example of your NIT Rourkela system. When you are doing the registration, it is linked to the payment gateway. Similarly, when you are booking IRCTC ticket, it is booking into the payment gateway. Any Flipkart or so, again it is related to some other database or payment gateway. So those so you must have to test that whether those interfaces are properly working or not. It can be performed by compatibility testing. So these tests are needed when the system interfaces with other systems. And in order, why this is performed? This is performed in order to check whether the interface is functioning as required or not. Let's quickly take a small example. If a system is to communicate with a large database system to retrieve some information, compatibility test will examine what? It will examine the speed and accuracy of the retrieval, whether the data is retrieved with very fast or not, whether the accuracy of the retrieval is correct or not. So that has to be performed by performing compatibility. We'll start the testing called as recovery testing. So here these tests, okay, these tests, they check the response to presence of faults or to the loss of data, power, devices, services. You are doing something, in between suppose power is lost, or the system crashes, whether you are able to retrieve the data or not. So this test check the response to presence of faults or to the loss of data, power, devices or services. Subject system to loss of resources. So in this testing, what you do, please you subject the system to loss of resources, and in that case check if the system recovers properly or not. Deliberately you switch on your power. Sorry, deliberately switch off the power. And deliberately see that one component you can take from the device, see how it is working. You see, the better example is you are all using Microsoft Word. Nowadays, when you are using Microsoft Word, you are typing something, the system automatically it auto saves, so that if in between the power goes, so periodically it auto saves. So from which point the power has gone, only maybe just before that some data will lost, but most of the data will be there because it performs auto checking. So this recovery testing is performed there, so that they have these Microsoft Word documents, it automatically saves. Why? To recovery, if there will some power failure, it can automatically recover the data to the maximum extent possible. Maintenance testing, here are some diagnostic tools and the procedures you can use. The diagnostic tools and procedures, they help find the source of problems. It may be required to supply the memory maps, diagnostic programs, traces of transactions, circuit diagrams, etc. Those diagnostic tools and procedures, they will help find the source of the problem. This is regarding maintenance testing. In maintenance testing, we have to verify that all the required artifacts or the maintenance exist, isn't it? So what are the artifacts? What are the tools? So they all exist. So in maintenance testing, we have to verify that all the required artifacts for and the tools for maintenance, they exist. Not only they exist, they should function properly. This has to be tested during maintenance testing. So next we will say about documentation test. We have to check that the required documents exist and consistent. There are many documents you see from SRS document, from requirement specification. In requirement specification, SRS document, design, the various DFD, UML diagrams, code, the source code itself. So we have to check that the required documents exist and they are consistent. What could be the documents? The documents could be user guides or user manuals, maintenance guides, other technical documents, so that SRS document, test manuals or test plans, etc. So all those required documents exist and they are also consistent. Sometimes the requirements specify that the format and audience of specific documents, which document is meant for which purpose. Like user manual, it's meant for the users. Tester manual, the test manual normally used for the testers, like that. So sometimes the requirements specify that, or they specify the format and audience of specific documents. The documents are evaluated for compliance. So whatever documents the organization is using, they must be evaluated. They must be examined for compliance. So this is all about the various types of performance testing. Some other performance testing. Some other performance testing you might see maybe in some of your books or other materials, such as reliability testing, security testing, load testing. Those things are there. So if time will permit, we will take up few of them in the next class. For example, security testing and this reliability testing, etc. If possible, we'll take up them in the next class. Okay. So thank you very much. We'll stop here because the time is already there. So any doubt, please till now. So why we are covering, because in the next lab class, we'll take these some of the tools for security testing as well as load testing. So one such example is JMeter. So those are free open source tools we'll take up in the next class. So that's why we have covered all those these performance testing techniques. Thank you very much. Any other doubt? Let's see. So a little bit, this is a easy topic. You can read yourself. One long question and some of the short questions may follow from this portion. If there are any more doubts, you can ask or prepare these things and ask in the next class. So I hope no questions are there. Then maybe easy topic. So we'll leave here. Those having other classes, they may join. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.